Today's topic, spiritual battles. A lot of you have been in spiritual battles. I'd go so far as to say that every single one of you has been in many spiritual battles in your life. Now, a lot of people think of spiritual battles as something that is completely internal. You know, conflict between one set of beliefs within yourself and another set that seem to be opposed to one another. Deciding on right action. A lot of people consider that to be a spiritual battle. It's just not what I'm talking about right now. What I'm talking about right now is what we see in the world around us and whether or not in good conscience we can just let it fly, let it pass. Now, obviously, there are a lot of things that go on in this world that are outside of the power that each of us has individually to address directly. You know, when I look at a lot of the things happening in the Middle East, I have a hard time even imagining how to go about trying to solve those problems because they're huge. Battles involving millions and billions of people. You do what little you can on something of that scale. But on a smaller scale, on a scale that you can affect, God, those battles are every bit as important. See, when we try to think about how would I affect the entire world, how could I be the great king or queen or general to change everything and be the one that's remembered in history for having made it all right, that's egotism. It's gross egotism. If you want to know how to fit into the movement toward a better, more peaceful, more enlightened, happier, more accepting, and ultimately blissful humanity for everybody, for the vast majority of us, we aren't the kings, we aren't the queens, we aren't the generals. Most of us, we're not even the dukes or the earls or any of that. The presidents and prime ministers, CEOs, barf. But in our everyday lives, we meet lots of other individuals, and their thoughts, their emotions, their beliefs and actions are defining a piece of the reality of every other human being that they individually interact with. A lot of us get this idea that if we go around fighting those battles, making a scene, that it's a bad thing. You know, at least in the States, in the American corporate environment, the idea of being a whistleblower, a tattletaler, a troublemaker can make your life very difficult. And then when you look at social circumstances, man, you can lose friends easily. You can make enemies if you call them out on their bullshit. If you call them out on things where they might honestly believe they're right, but when you look at the simple facts of the matter, you know that some of what they're doing is intensely destructive. And you have a choice. Do I just say, it's all good, I have my inner peace, and therefore I don't need to concern myself with the material world, just going to let it fly and wish them the best? Or do you accept the burden of duty? Do you accept that when you were born into this world, certain burdens fell upon your shoulders that you must carry? Now, fighting a spiritual battle with someone who's outright 100% across the board evil, that's easy. When you see evil just painted all over the wall, that's an easy spiritual battle to fight. All you have to do is go into it 100% and fight as hard as you can, win or lose. But that's not most of the battles we face. That's a tiny fraction. The real battles we face are with the people that we're connected to, the people that we have sympathy and understanding for, and yet who still have poison within them and dose that poison out to other people. So many of us like to say that I don't get involved in conflict. I don't believe in conflict. And that's beautiful. I mean, you're looking at an ideal. You're looking at a paradisal world and trying to live in that. And many people from a very pacifistic mentality believe that participating in any form of cycle of aggression, anything from guns and grenades to verbal hostilities, they believe that any of that is participating in a cycle of negativity. However, I follow the way of nature. When I look at any organism, it has natural defense mechanisms. Let's look at a human. If a virus enters the body, you have an immune response. There are T cells and white blood cells and things that go in to kill the invasive element. And then with other types of disease, say cancer, the natural immunity isn't enough to deal with it, so someone's got to come in and cut it out. An outsider has to enter into your situation to remove the disease that's killing you. Sometimes, my friends, it will fall upon your shoulders to be the white blood cell. Sometimes it will fall upon your shoulders to be the warrior. Sometimes it'll fall upon your shoulders to be the one making everything uncomfortable when everybody just wants it to be okay. But it's really not you making it uncomfortable. It's not you creating the conflict. What it really is you looking at a situation and asking yourself, which is going to be worse? Is it going to be worse if I make a scene over this? Or is it going to be worse if I don't? And if not making a scene over it is what's really going to have the worst results, then maintaining that inner peace and refusing to engage is selfish. It truly is. Even if you would love nothing more than to just not allow conflict to exist in your own personal space. If your interactions with the world around you show you that something destructive is happening, who are you to say that that duty isn't good enough for you? So much of the evil and dysfunction in this world is the result of people not wanting to deal with it. And a lot of times people think, oh, cowardice if you don't deal with the problems in front of you. But it's usually not that simple. Usually, what keeps people from taking action isn't just cowardice. Usually it's sympathy for the person who's doing wrong. The hesitation can also come from fear of what other people are going to think of you. It can come from a very sacral and solar chakra, herd mentality, desire for approval that can lead you to let the thing slide because that's what everybody else is doing. That's how we keep this world the same. Most of you who watch my videos, you're not happy with the way this world is. You're not happy with the way people treat each other, the way they look at each other. You're not looking at humanity. You're not looking at the nation you live in or the state or province or city that you live in or the community that you're in, whether it's an artistic community or a hobby-based community or a religious community. You're not looking at it and saying, oh, that's all good. You're looking at it and saying, man, how could this be better? And yet, when you see dysfunction playing out, there's this instinct to just walk away from it. To just say, I don't want to hurt that person's feelings. I don't want that person's friends to think that I'm the bad guy. I don't want people to look down on me or accuse me of being the one who's initiating an uncomfortable or unpleasant situation. It's important to balance your own perspective against other people's perspectives, and that is the way in which most of us who are empaths, and I'll only regret it when I look back and realize how much harm happened because of my own inaction. And so many of us are like this. And that difficulty is exponentially more difficult when the wrong action is being done by somebody that you honestly feel a connection and sympathy for. You can see their point of view. You can look at yourself and have self-doubt. And that kind of intellectual self-doubt that keeps you humble and keeps you open-minded is a valuable thing. But my friends, if there's no one in this world who's willing to point to dysfunction, even in our friends, or if not our friends, then people who hold similar philosophical beliefs to ourselves, if you're not willing to look at that person and say, hey, you might be right on 90% of the time, but the 10% of the time where you're wrong, it's not just that you're a little inaccurate, it's that you're fucked up. It's that the things that you're doing and saying, that the impact you're having on the people around you in the long term is fucking up. And the fact that you don't understand that right now is something I'm going to try to correct. If you're not willing to do that, and I'm not willing to do that, and the other person over there isn't willing to do that, neither is that one, then there's just a cycle that's going to continue until the perpetrator dies. Things that seemed like the most radical and groundbreaking truths even 10 years ago, much less 20, 30, 40 years ago. When you look at it through modern eyes, it's still poison. It's like you took raw sewage and you sifted out the floaters, but the water is still poison. There's a whole lot more that needs to be done before it's really going to be okay. And so there's another dynamic polarity, a balance between respecting the good intentions of people who are honestly trying to be on the side of goodness, to be on the side of liberty and freedom and respect and healing and endless expansion into the cosmos. Respecting that, and yet being willing to call out and criticize those who, while trying to be our brothers and sisters, are still enforcing nasty, negative, and destructive things that they simply don't see. So there's a polarity between respecting the work of those who have gone before you and the absolutely necessary work that you yourself have to do of pointing out all the areas in which the revelations they experienced decades ago are every bit as poisonous as the revelations that they themselves once had to overthrow. When you engage in spiritual battles, my brothers and sisters, do not do so with hatred in your heart. But when anger is appropriate, let there be anger. I follow the way of nature. Nature gave you the gift of anger, to destroy that which must be destroyed. Those of you who know why I'm making this video know, and those of you who don't, look in your own mirror and ask yourself where you could do a better job of being the one to make it better, even if it hurts you yourself to do it. And with that, my friends, my love to all of you, and fare thee well.